Hello and welcome back to an architecture tour of Deus Ex Human Revolution. I am Simon and we are in Omega Ranch. And at the end of last video I didn't remember what the name of this place was, but it's called Omega Ranch. It's not really a ranch, it's more of a research facility. You start off in a warehouse, which is a pretty ordinary looking warehouse, although you'll notice. Actually, I'll point it out now, and you can just keep it in mind as we go through this. There's no outside door in any of the areas that we go through, so everything faces inwards. If you try to think about the outer boundary of this map, there's no doors leading outwards. Okay, so the first instance of this is, these are the doors leading into the warehouse, which are, these doors. And then the doors face this area. There's no doors here, no gates there, no gates there. So there's stairs leading that way, and then there's a wall this way. So how do you get all of this stuff into this area? Down the stairs? You throw them over the wall? There's no connection to the outside to actually move any of the stuff into this place. So that's a bit of strangeness there, but that's okay. That's okay. It's a gameplay area, so I guess they're kind of more concerned about gameplay than having it make too much sense in terms of narrative and storytelling. The architecture is kind of interesting. We've got these squares and awnings, and the sunshades are... I don't know if I want to get into too much detail about the shades. Those aren't actually windows, so you wouldn't need shades on there, and we are actually in a tropical area. So I'm not actually sure the angle of those shades is sufficient to shade anything. Anyway, that's probably way too much detail. It doesn't really need to be discussed or thought about too much. Let's see, microgen building. Anyway, so this is a courtyard area in the middle of these, I guess, 3 buildings. Yep, there's 3 buildings. Let's go into this one first. We have authorized personnel only, with some beds, armory, security. More beds.
More questions about the problem of human enhancement.
We have security room.
Is this the beginning of a complete technological breakdown, or just another glitch?
And this is it, I think. Yeah, this is like a barracks. Although there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's only 12 beds in the whole barracks, and I can assure you there's more than 12 enemies in this part of the game, so maybe this is a little too small. But I never mind that too much. So, what am I stuck on? Okay. Timber floors, that's nice. There's that, it's sort of a radar thing. And then through here, what do we call this? This is the Omega Ranch Biomech Lab. And this is the front door. We go this way and around. This is a little bit strange how this is laid out. So we came through here, that's the warehouse. That's the courtyard, that's the barracks. So we have an entrance, and then we come around, and then the main hall. You gotta wonder why they don't have the main entrance here. So everything just flows from the front door, and there's this strange bit to the side. Although, given that they force you to wait, I think this is just a loading screen. So they force you to walk around, so they load these assets while you're standing there. This is nice. Look at that. So again, this is obviously a concept art area. I'm not sure I understand the symbolism though, if there is any symbolism. Aside from just having a very expensive looking kind of architecture. The blacks and golds, the fancy lights. And yeah, I think... I mean, I would speculate that this area is a little bit rushed, because they went and built this area with this grand staircase and fancy architecture. But once you get to the top, it doesn't actually lead anywhere important. It's just offices and rooms up here. And the decor here is completely different as well. I mean, we are heading towards the end of the game, and this starts to get into the areas where if there were time limits or budget limits, then they would start cutting areas and start, taking shortcuts. If that were the case, then that might explain the inconsistencies in the decor. I mean, if you imagine you built this, and then you decide you need to cut the area, well, you wouldn't want to waste all the work that's gone into that, so you just cut and paste that into another area and use it. I mean, that sort of things happen. I don't know for sure if that's what happened here, but given the inconsistencies in the color scheme and interior design and all that, it's possible. So downstairs, see, this is a different color scheme again. Now we're, there's greens in the main hall, there's reds in the upper corridors, now it's black and gold down in these corridors. So we got medical beds and facilities down here. And here we have an operating theatre. Nothing happens in here in this game, although looking at the environment you would suspect something to happen here, because look at these. We have chairs, fancy chairs, and we have an extra fancy chair in the middle. There's a good doctor standing there, there's an operating theatre there, so I don't know if you have a lot of people watching things going on. In the game nothing happens. In the game you just talk to this guy and then move on. But this is it's a very fancy area that doesn't really serve any purpose in the game, and I know that this is a concept art as well. So someone drew this and designed this. And I think again it's just a matter of them making the map and then not having the budget or the time to finish it off by putting a full-on story in here, and so they just use the assets so they don't waste it. That's what it seems like to me. And then over this way we have a morgue, which also doesn't actually serve any purpose. All it does is it looks good. There's no enemies here and there's no story here, it's just the room. And you wouldn't go into this much trouble to make it look this good. I don't think you wouldn't have done that if you weren't intending for it to be something special. But in this game it's just nothing special. Like the main hall upstairs, like the operating theatre down here, like the morgue, nothing special happens in any of these spaces. And if it's true that these areas were cut back because of limitations in time and funding, then you gotta wonder how this game would have turned out if they had all the time in the world and all the money that they needed to perfect it. And this is actually on top of the operating theatre. We look down here, we can see the good doctor down there, and the beds and the robot arms and all that. So yeah. I don't want to speculate too much, but it just seems that way. Oh, whoops, wrong way. See, again, look at this. there's a corridor on the other side, but this doesn't join up, so you have to come down and then go up again. And I don't know why they would do that. So you come down and go back up. And then you go to this corridor, which is like a bridge. Let's say a courtyard outside. And then we're in this building here. The Microgen Lab, they call it. So we have more offices. See, the color scheme changed again. It was red on that side, it's yellow on this side. Yellow and green. And black, I guess. Black and yellow and green. And then this is like a green and dark brown, and so this is the lobby area of this building. I guess we should jump down if we want to. Yeah, let's do that. So the main door is through here. Exit to courtyard. I don't want to go through that because they'll make us wait again. So the courtyard was out here, so you come through here and this is the main entrance. Again, there's a loading screen. Or it's not really a loading screen, but they still force you to wait in that room. So we have a sculpture. I mean, anytime you see a fancy sculpture, you can be sure somebody designed it, right? I don't know if this sculpture actually means anything though. I can't figure out. It's like holding up the sky or something. I don't know what that means. Let's see. Microgen Lab, storage rooms. So there's storage down here, and then you can go upstairs. And there are labs upstairs. There, and actually we should go into the labs. So this lab has been shut down. The color scheme here, I guess it's white and black and white and a bit of yellow. And this lab is still functioning. I don't know, it's not as shiny as some of the other places we've been to, especially the floor looks a bit dark and dirty. Although, you know, what they're doing here is not very nice as well. Maybe it's a reflection of the questionable things they do over here. And that's these buildings around the courtyard. So all of it is gameplay. You might have seen all the bodies lying around, so there's enemies all over the place. Any architectural merit to this? I don't know, aside from fairly decent interior design, you know, nice color work and good attention to detail on all the furniture and wall panels and everything else. But I don't see any real symbolism or storytelling or anything like that in these areas at least. So we come out through the front door and here we are back in the main courtyard of this area. So that's all one big puzzle, and you know, again, this gameplay area is fairly complex. You'll notice there's no rooms and corridors anymore, which I approve of. Although you might say that's a room and then there's a corridor and then there's... But once you get to here, you know, you have a central courtyard and then you have a building here, a building here, and a building here. That building's fairly simple, but these two buildings have, I think, 3 stories each, and then there's a central area and then rooms around it, and here we have a central area and rooms around it. So you have, you know, courtyards. How should I describe it? So there's a courtyard with stuff around it, and then in each of the surrounding stuff there's a courtyard, and then there's stuff around it. So there's clusters within clusters. So the space is a bit more complex, although it's still fairly easy to understand because they're grouped, and so you can identify them as separate things, and so it's easy to wrap your head around each building and each space. So it's not confusing at all. It's quite easy to figure out where you are because you can always find your way back to the center of the cluster you're in, and you can identify where you are. But it's more complicated and it's not linear. You can choose to do one place before the other, or you can choose which order you do them in. So more complex, more freedom in the way you move through the space when compared to earlier parts of the game, and that's good. I don't know if people can usually identify it in games, but when you play a game, sometimes you play through it and you get bored after a while, and it's not always easy to identify why. And I think that's often one of the reasons why, if you start off with simple gaming areas, and then as you move through the game, if it doesn't get any more complicated, or if it doesn't change, and it's the same corridors and rooms for hours and hours on end, then I think people will get bored of it because they're not being introduced to anything new. They're just doing the same thing over and over again. So they're mixing it up a bit here, which is nice. So this part, that's obviously a corridor there, leading around. This is not very complex. WHO, so you notice there's still no door to the outside. This is a separate area now. They call it this high security area, and I don't know, usually high security areas are further inwards. Maybe the front door is through here or something. Anyway, the next part of the game is through here. If I remember right, this is just an elevator here. Yeah, there is. There's an elevator here. There's a dead-end room there. Alright, I'll be back in a little bit. I need to load the game to the next part because, as you can see, we can't get through there at the moment, and once you go through you can't come back. So, be right back. Alright, so if you went through that door and you came up the elevator, you'll come out here and you'll see this. Fancy lights and statues. This is well, stuff happens here, let's just say that. I mean, if you play the game, it's pretty obvious what's going on in here, but stuff happens. And I'm not sure... Well, the shape of the room is a consequence of what happens here. It's an action sequence, let's just say that. Now the decoration... Oh, look at that. It looks like a floor plan, doesn't it? In fact, it looks like the same floor plan, one inside the other. If you remember back in the video where we went into Jensen's apartment, the lights had some funny patterns in it as well. And they're like Renaissance style floor plans. Fancy lights. This is statues of... I think these are meant to be perfect human bodies. Without skin though, which is a little bit creepy. But again, the perfection of the human form is both a Renaissance idea historically, and also part of this game's idea of augmentation and improving the human being through technology. They're all standing there saluting you. I don't know why they chose to put them like that. Let's see, what are these? More floor plans, I believe. Or parts of floor plans. Interesting they chose to use floor plans as decorative elements. Anyway, so stuff happens here, action sequence. And then a completely different color scheme. This time we're white and blue. It's a cold white as well. And oh no, I forgot her name. Ah, Megan Reed. Megan Reed is her name. Oh, whoops. Maybe I shouldn't tell you that. You'll find Megan Reed in here. Whoa! Whoa, look at that! I mean, if you thought the previous office areas were... You know, the main character office areas were pretty special. This is pretty special. It's just all white. You see that pattern on the floor? Do you recognize the pattern? It's the pattern that was in David Serif's office on the ceiling. And if you play the game, and you know who Megan Reed is, that would make sense to you. So it's all white. I mean, white symbolizes purity, I guess. The Virgin Bride. And everything else. There's computers and books. There's books hidden behind a curtain. In fact, you can hide the bookshelf behind a curtain. Maybe it symbolizes hidden knowledge? I mean, even the computer is white. Some gramophone, some old school furniture. I mean, white is usually associated with good, with light, with purity, with holiness, I guess. And I guess you can apply all that symbolism into this, and the texture on the roof, I don't know what that means. It kind of looks like it's kind of caving in on you. And maybe that's part of the symbolism as well, you know. Things are getting out of control a little bit. And yeah, there's pressure from above. Well, that certainly is consistent with the story. And should I go into the next area? Well, I'll go to the next area. If it doesn't work out, I'll cut the video here, and thanks for watching. If it works out, then we'll see the next area as well. Okay, I'm gonna cut some of that out because there was a bit of story in there anyway. So it comes through her room into a hangar, and there's a shuttle there that will lead us to the next part of the game, which is Panchaea, which is the final part of the game. Alright, I'll see you there. This guy's just... ooh, that's cool. Anyway, yep, see you in the next bit. Thanks for watching.